Hello everyone. Do you want to understand about SQLite? Then you have come to the right place. Hi, my name is Sandeep, and in this video we will give a basic introduction about SQLite database tool and all the SQL commands, basically all the important SQL commands that can be performed in it. So without wasting much time, let's get started. Alright, first to download SQLite, go to sqlite.org/download. And based on your operating system, in my case I have Windows, just come here, pre-compiled binary for Windows, and just click on this third link. Okay, in case if you have Mac, you can come and click on this particular zip file, or for Linux you can just click on this zip file. Alright, so in my case I'll check this third link because it contains a bundle of command line tools along with my SQLite database files. Alright, so once you click on this, so actually I have already clicked on this, and you'll get a file like this, and what you have to do is you have to just extract the file. Okay, so let me just extract it here itself, and you see here we have three files. So SQLite3.exe is the most important file because it is the actual executable, and SQLDiff and SQLite3_analyzer are optional file. If you want, you can keep it, else you can delete this as well. Now, before showing any SQL operation on SQLite, first you should know what exactly is SQLite. Okay, so SQLite is a software package which is self-contained and which is having zero configuration. That means you do not have to have any configuration for it. Okay, you do not have to define any configuration. In fact, it is self-contained. That means it is self-contained database. Okay, and it is serverless. You do not have to have any server for this. All right, so these are the basic things which I have told you about SQLite. And in fact, you can save the SQLite in your local file, local PC as well. I'll show you that as well. For example, in my case, I'll just show you that you can access the database and tables directly from your system in a particular folder. So first, let me just copy these three files. Okay, I'll just give Control-C, and I'll just go to my C drive. Here, I'll just click on New Folder, and I'll just create a folder with the name SQLite. So in this particular folder, what I'll do is I'll copy all these three files. Okay, as I told you, this is the most important file, that is SQLite3. Other two files are optional. If you want, you can keep it, else you can delete it. But I would suggest you to keep all these three files. It is always better. Now, what you have to do is you have to go to command prompt. Okay, you have to go to command prompt, and if you just give here SQLite3, now you notice it will give an error. You see, it says that it is not recognized because you have downloaded SQLite. I mean, you have copied the files to this particular folder. So this is the path, but you have not defined the path. So first, what I'll do is I'll just exit it from here. And again, what I'll do is I'll just go to system environment. Okay, so I'll just go to edit the system environment variables. Here under advanced, I'll go to environment variables. And again, I'll come to path. You can go and you can define the path under this user variable also. You see, you will be having a path here. In fact, at this moment, I don't have a path, but you can just click on new and you can define a path, for example, variable name as path, and you can just give the variable value as this particular path location. But it is always better to define the path in system variable because it will be applicable to the entire system. All right. So I'll just click on this and I'll just give edit and go to new. So click new. And here give the path. So just give OK and come out. Now if I just go to command prompt, now you'll notice if I just give SQLite3, you see that it says the SQLite version. Okay, and it says that it is connected to transient in-memory database. Now transient in-memory database means that it is not a permanent database. That means data is not saved on your local machine. All right. So for learning purpose, what we'll do is we'll create a permanent database. In fact, this is what we are going to do here. And just to see all the shell commands, you can just give .help so that you will get all the help and it will open all the commands which you can perform here. All right. And to come out, you can just give .q or .quit. And now you see that you have come outside it. All right. Now first, what I'll do is I'll just go to CD and this particular path. Okay, so this is my path. All right, and I'll come here and I'm going to create a particular database in this particular folder, and then what I'll do is I'll create tables inside this particular folder. Now if I just come to my command prompt, you see if I just give .cell space cd, you see that it will show the directory in which you are in. So you see here at this moment it is not showing. Okay, so I've done a mistake here. It is not recognizing this particular shell command is because first I have to open this particular database, right? Inside the database, I'll perform all the SQLite operations. Okay, so to create a permanent database, what I can do is I give something like this, that is SQLite 3 and then mydb.db. So this is the database which I'm going to create. Okay, that is mydb.db. In fact, you can give any name as per your choice. Give enter and you see that it says SQLite version. Okay, so I've created a particular database, and at this moment you see there is nothing inside this particular folder. Okay, because we have not created any tables, and in fact I have not saved anything in this particular database as well. Okay, so let me do one thing. First I'll just give .tables. Okay, if I just give .tables, it will show you the tables inside this particular database, but at this moment we do not have any tables. That is the reason you see that it does not give anything. Now first let me just create a table. Okay, so I can just give, for example, let's say create table, and name of the table, for example, I can just give stores, or I can just give a store. I can just give store ID as integer or int. Okay, so this will store a number. Then I can just give here item ID as let's say integer. Okay, I'll just give item name. This one will be text field so that I can have the text, and at end I'll just give a semicolon. Now please note that it is not mandatory to have the SQL commands in uppercase, but it is always better to have the SQL commands in uppercase so that you are following the proper standard. Okay, and it is better to give semicolon at end. That means the command is going to end here. So if I just give enter, now you see that it is not showing anything here. That means it is success. Now if I just give .tables, actually I have given in uppercase, so it should be .tables. Okay, so please note all the SQL commands you can give in either uppercase or lowercase, but these are all shell commands. For example, .tables. Okay, this is not a SQL command, so for this I have to give in small letter. So if I just give .tables, let me just give .tables, enter, and you see you have this particular table. All right, and if you just come here, you see here you have this particular database which is created, and in fact inside this particular database you have this particular table, right? That is store table. So there are 5 major data types. Okay, so what you will do is, if I just go to, I'll just show you, if I just go to sqlite.org/datatype3.html, you can see everything about data types. Okay, so on a higher level we have 5 types of data types. Okay, the first one is null. So if you do not have a defined value, so if you think that a particular field can have undefined values or it can have null values, then you can have that particular data type as null. You can have integer. For example, you have int, that is one type of integer. Then you can have small int, then you have signed integer, right? Then we have real, so it is a floating value, right? Then you have text, so it is going to store a particular text, for example name, or if you have a city or anything which is having a text string, it will contain this. And then we have blob, for example images and so on. So it will convert that images in pixels and it will store it. So what I'll do is I'll just provide you this particular link. You can go through this link and you can see for all these data types it has been explained in detail. And let's move forward. So we have created this table, that is store table, and now what we'll do is, let me just do one thing. First let me insert some records. Okay, so I'll just give insert. So for inserting any record in the table, we use insert command, and to create table I've shown you that we use create table command, that is create table and name of the table. And then this is my first field, that is store ID, which is integer or int. Then we have item ID, which will be int. Okay, in fact you can give any field and you can have any type of data I mean any data type you can attach with that particular field based on your requirement. Then we have name, and name cannot be a numbered or it cannot be integer, and that is the reason I have just given here text. Alright, so it's very simple. And if I just give insert into table name, so my table is store, so the command to insert values into table is insert into table name values, and here you can give a particular field name, for example store ID, comma item ID, comma item name, and I can just give sorry for that, actually it will be insert into store, and then let me just come here and I'll just give the field, okay, and I'll just give values, and for store ID let me just give a value of 1. For item ID, for example, let's say I'll just give 1, and item name, for example, I'll just give, for example, pen. Okay, you can give anything in item name, just give enter, and now one record is inserted. It is not giving a message here because there is a successful insertion of the record. If there is an error, it will give an error here. Okay, again what I'll do is, instead of giving all the fields, you see, if you want to insert the records for all the fields, okay, then you can also give something like this. For example, insert into store, and you can omit the fields here. Okay, you can just give something like this, that is insert into store values 2, and let me just give, for example, 2. Okay, there is some issue here. Okay, so I have to just give here 2, and this time I'll just give, for example, pencil, and just give enter, and now you see that again this record is inserted. Just to see how many records we have inserted, you can just give, for example, select star, or it is better I'll just give in capital letter, that is select star, that is select all the fields or all the records from the table. So select star from stores. Okay, and you see we have 2 records, that is 1, 11 and pen, and you see there is a delimiter here, right? So this is the separator by default in this particular case. Now if you want to save this database, what you can do is you can just give, for example, dot save and name of this particular database, or in fact you can save the table also. So if I just give dot save and name of the table, for example store, you see if I just give enter, this particular table is saved. Now if I just go to my SQLite, you see I have this particular table as well. Okay, in the same way you can also save a particular database. Now in this particular case I have already created this particular database, that is mydb.db, and exclusively if you want to save this, you can just give dot save and name of this particular database, and it is mydb, right? If I just give enter, now you see this particular database is saved. And if you don't want this particular background color of this command prompt, you can just come here, you can change the color from here. Okay, so you can just go to colors, you can change the color. In fact, you can just go to terminal, you can do some changes here. If you want to change the font, you can just come here and you can change the font. So if I just want to make it, for example, let's say 28, I can do it. I think 24 would be fine. Now you see I have a bigger font. Okay, and you can change a lot of things. And as I told you, you can just give .q or .quit to quit from this particular database. So if I just give .quit, now you see that I have quit from this particular database. All right, and you see my database is there. Okay, I have this particular file. Okay, that is mydb. Then this particular file is for this particular database. Then we have this particular table as well. Now if I just come back here, you can again go back and open the particular database. Okay, and I have come to this particular location. Now what I'll do is I'll just open my database with .open command, or I'll just give SQLite 3 and then name of the database. So this time I'll just give .open because I have already given SQLite 3 and then mydb.db previously. So this time I'll just show you that you can use mydb.db as well. And actually there is some problem here. Okay, so it is not able to recognize this .open command because you have not given SQLite 3 at top. Okay, so you have to just give SQLite 3 so that you have come inside this particular SQLite. All right, so you see we are using this particular SQLite 3.exe for this. Okay, and now if I just give .open and if I just give mydb.db, now this time it is successful. Okay, and it is not showing any error. And this is how you can open a particular database as well. Or what I'll do is I'll just give SQLite 3 and name of my database. All right, so let me just give SQLite 3 and mydb.db. Now this time you can see some message that the database is locked. You see here it is not giving a particular message, because first let me just force it to come out. So for that I'll just give Control-C to force it. Okay, and again I'll just go to cd and then C:\SQLite. Okay, so this is my folder, and I'll directly give here this time SQLite 3 mydb.db, and I have come inside this particular folder, right? Now first let me just show you. First thing is, like, you see this is the command to select all the records from the store table. Okay, now I have these two records. I'll just show you that we can use where command. So for example, if you want to put a condition, for example, I want to retrieve all the records where the store ID is only 1. So for that, what I can do is I can just give select, let me just give in capital, select star from store where store ID equal to 1. Okay, just give enter, and you see it has fetched me only one record, and here in the first record we have 1, 11 and pen. Okay, and if you want to have the header as well, what you can do is you can just give dot header on. Again this time I have to give in small case. Okay, dot header on. Okay, just give enter, and please note here that I'm not going to give a semicolon here. Okay, this is wrong. You do not have to give semicolon for shell commands. Okay, this is not SQL command that you have to put semicolon. For SQL commands you are going to put a semicolon at the end, so that the command is going to end there. Okay, but in this case I'm not going to put anything there. Okay, just give enter, and now this time you see here I have just given dot header on. That means if I just give here select star from store where store ID is this time, let's say if I just give, or let me just delete. Okay, what I'll do, I'll just give here for example where item name is equal to, I'll just give for example let's say pen, or I'll just give pencil this time. Okay, and if I just give semicolon and enter, now you see here we have a header as well, that is store ID, item ID and item name. Okay, so for that I have just given dot header on if you want to have header on. All right, and you can also have and command. For example, if I just give for example let's say select star from store where item name is pencil, and I'll just give item name is equal to for example pen. Okay, just give semicolon, and what here I want to say is that I want to select all the records from store table where item name is equal to pencil and item name is equal to pen. But you see that there is no record as such where item name is also pencil and pen, so it will give no record, you see here. And you see if I just give select star from store table where item name is pencil, and I'll just give item ID, so let me just give here item ID is equal to, let's say I'll just give 22. Okay, so what I'm saying is that select star, select records from store table where item name is pencil and item ID is 22. Again it will not give any record. You see here it says that, I think, okay, so there is no column. You see here it says error here because I have given item underscore ID. So I'll just give upper arrow in my keyboard to retrieve the previous command itself, and here I think we were having item ID, right? So just give enter, and you see here we have item name. Okay, so we have one record. Okay, so we have pencil and then item ID is 22, right? So that is the reason it faced this particular record. You can also have or command. So what you can do is you can just give something like this, that is select star from store table where item name is equal to pencil and you can just give, for example, instead of and, you'll just give or. You can just give store name or store underscore. In fact, let me just check that we have store ID. We do not have store name, right? So I'll just have store ID is equal to, this time I'll just give store ID as 1. So I'll just give enter. You see that for the first record, store ID is 1, and for the second record, the item name is pencil. So OR command means that select record from the table. Either of these conditions are successful, then you fetch these record. So item name is pencil. Okay, so this is also fetched, and store ID is 1, so this is also fetched, right? So there are 2 records. And just to make it more clearer, what I'll do is I'll insert more records into table. So just to make this course little fast, I'm just giving in small case. So please remember, it is better for you to have in uppercase, but in this case I'll just give insert into table name, that is store. I'll just give values, and let me just give, for example, 3, 4, 4, and item name as, for example, book. Okay, just give a semicolon at end, give enter, and again if I just give select star from store, I do not put any where clause. Now you see I have 3 records. In the same way I'll put more records, so I'll just give here, for example, 5. Okay, and here let me just give, for example, 6, 7, and I can just give, for example, this time notebook. All right, give enter, and again I have 4 records. All right, so in this way you can have lot of records. Okay, and you see here I can also have something like this, that is insert into this particular store, that is store ID as 1. I can have more records, for example 4, 4, and I can also have book. Okay, so there is no problem with that, because we do not have any constraint that store ID will have only unique values. Okay, so you see here I can also have 144 book. Okay, so for store ID 1, we have item ID as 11 and 44, and for item ID 11, this is called as pen. For item ID 44, this is called as book. Okay, so this is all about and or. In fact, you can group based on a particular column. So what you can do is, for example, you can just give select star from table group by, you can just give, for example, item underscore ID. Okay, so it is, in fact, it is item ID. Okay, now you see it says 1, 2, 3, and 5. Okay, so to explain this group by clause in detail, what I'm going to do is, first let me create another table. So I'll just give create table. This time let's create a invoice table. So I'll just give invoice. First I'll just give invoice ID as integer, or you can just give complete integer. Okay, and I'll just give invoice name. I'll just mark this as text, and I'll just have invoice amount, and I'll just make it as, for example, let's say you can have it as float, or let's say just keep it simple, we'll just have integer. Okay, so create table, table name, and then I have just given the fields along with their data type. All right, just give enter, and if I just give insert into table, that is invoice, and I'll just give values. I'll just give invoice ID as, for example, let's say 10. Invoice name, I'll just give, for example, let's say some dummy name I have just given, and invoice amount, let me just give 100 rupees. Okay, so I'll just give 100 rupees, or you can think it as dollar. So in fact I have to just give 100, because I should not give in double quotes or single quote, because it is not a text field. So for integer you have to just pass the value as it is. For text string you have to just give double quotes or single quotes. All right, just give semicolon, just give enter, and if I just give select star from invoice, you see we have 1 record. In the same way I can have multiple records. For example, for 10, that is for this particular invoice ID, I can have another name. Okay, and I'll just give, for example, 1500, just give enter. Again I'll just give another name here. Okay, and here I'll just give, for example, 650, enter. Again I'll just change the invoice. So instead of 1 0, I'll just have, for example, 30, and here I'll just change it to, for example, let's say this particular invoice name, and I can just have, for example, 1700, give enter. Okay, so I'll just create more records just to show you that the behavior of group by clause, order by clause, and so on will be very easy for your understanding. So this time I'll just give, for example, 20, and again I'll just give some records, and I'll just give, for example, 16, or let's say 6500, give enter. Again, let me just give 50. Okay, just change it to some other value. Okay, again I'll just give 8500. Okay, again let me just give 50, and again let me just give something like this. Again I'll just give 7500, enter. Now what I want you to do is that I want to retrieve, first of all, let me just give select star from invoice. Okay, now what I want is, let's say that I have this table, that is invoice table, and you see if I just give select star from this particular table, we have 3 records for invoice ID 10, right? Similarly, we have 2 records for invoice ID 50. So I want to understand the count of invoice ID 10, 20, and so on. So what I'll do is, for that I can just give the group by clause. I'll just show you. If I just give select invoice ID, and I'll just give count of invoice ID. Okay, count of invoice ID. Okay, from this table, that is invoice, group by invoice ID. Okay, so if I just give enter, now you see that for invoice ID 10 the count is 3, right? Then for invoice ID 20 you see the count is 1, for 30 we have 1, and for 50 we have 2 counts. That means we have 2 records, right? So in this way you can use the group by clause. Similarly, you can sort the records by order by. So I can just give, for example, at this moment, if I just give select, let's say star from this table, that is invoice, order by, let's say I want to sort the records based on, at this moment we have this 10, 30, 20, 50, right? So let me just sort the records based on this invoice amount. So I can just give select star from invoice, order by invoice amount, just give enter, and you see by default it will be in ascending order. Okay, and if you see, if you just want to sort the records based on descending order, you can just give here DESC, just give semicolon, and now you see it is in descending order, right? So in this way you can just use order by clause. Okay, in fact you can have between operator as well. So I can just give select star from invoice, where I can just give where invoice amount between 1700 and let's say 6500. Okay, just give semicolon, and you see there are only 2 records where invoice amount is between 1700 and 6500. You see here 6500 and 1700 both are included, so the starting and end are also included. In the same way you can also have in operator. For example, you can just give select star from invoice, where you see this time what I'll do is I don't want to select all the fields from invoice table. What I'll do is I just want to select only, let's say, invoice ID. So I'll just give here invoice ID. Okay, select invoice ID from invoice, where invoice amount, or where this time I'll just give, let's say, invoice ID itself. So I'll just give invoice ID in. For in operator we have to use parenthesis. So I'll just select all the invoices, I mean all the invoice ID from this particular table, where invoice ID in 10 comma let's say 50. Okay, so if I just give enter, now there is no such column as invoice ID, so there is some problem here. So I have just given here invoice, which is wrong. It should be CE, not C. So it is invoice ID, and just give enter, and you see that we have invoice ID. Okay, these 3 invoice ID, that is 10, 10, 10, again 50 and 50. Okay, so in this case we have used in operator because I want to select all the invoice ID where invoice ID is either 10 or 50. So you can consider this in operator as OR operator where invoice ID is 10 or 50. You can also have something like this. So it is same as where invoice ID is equal to 10 or invoice ID is equal to 50. You see, both will give the same result. Okay, now this is all about select operators. Now let's talk about update. So at this moment, if I just give, let's say, select star from this particular invoice table, I have these records, right? Now what I want is I want to update this particular name. Okay, what I'll do is I'll just use update. So this is the update SQL command. So I'll just give update table name, that is update invoice, set invoice name is equal to, for example, let's say test, where invoice ID is equal to 10. Now you see, if I just give like this, it will update these three records, all these three records. So what I'll do is I'll just give where invoice ID is 10 and invoice amount is equal to 100. So in this way, it will update only the first record. And if I just give enter, now you see, if I just give select star from invoice, now you see that I have this test. So I have updated this particular record, that is the invoice name where invoice ID is 10 and invoice amount is 100. In fact, this where clause is optional. If I just give update invoice set invoice name as test, what it will do is it will set the invoice name as test for all the records. Okay, so be careful when you are using update command. If you want to check the structure or schema of a particular table, you can just give dot schema, and you see we have two tables, that is store table and this is the schema, right? And we have invoice table. If you want to know the schema of only one table, for example invoice table, you can just give dot schema and name of the table, that is invoice. Now you see it has given the schema of this particular table only. All right, now let's talk about some date functions. Okay, so if you just go to this particular link, that is SQLite.org, and then lang_datefunc, here you'll see all the date related functions. Okay, so you can just go through this particular list and you can understand in a detailed manner. At this moment, let me just show you few commands. For example, if I just want to show the date in GMT, I'll just give select date and it is going to give me this particular date, that is in GMT. Okay, so it is 2022-07-12. Okay, so this is year, then this is the month, and then this is the date. Okay, similarly I can just give, for example, let's say select time, and it will give the time as well, right? If I want to get date along with time, I can just give select date time. Okay, and you see we have date along with time. So just go to this link and you can explore. We have date, we have time, date time, we have Julian day. Okay, we have strf time, so it is for a particular format. Okay, and you see these are the formats here for strf time. Okay, so you can try all these functions. And now let's come back here, and first let me just discuss about constraints. So there are a lot of constraints. For example, first one we have is primary key. So in a table, let's say that if you want to have a primary key, that means a key which will not contain any null values and which will only contain unique records, then we can have primary key. So let's say if I just want to create a table, so I'll just give, let's say, create table, and let's say the name of the table as student, and I'll just give student ID. So I'll just give SID as integer, student name, and I'll just give as text. And if I just give, for example, let's say as phone number. Okay, so I don't know the structure of this, so I can just give as text. So you can argue that why we are not giving as number field. So I don't know how the students are going to enter the phone number. So they can give phone number something like this, that is for example +87 like this, okay, or they can just give something like this, that is with country code, for example +91 for India, and then some number, okay, or they can give only the phone number, for example something like this, okay. So that is the reason I've just given this as phone as text, okay. You can also have the address also, so student address, or you can just have email, okay. You can also have this as text, okay. Now if I just create this table, the issue here is that student ID, what I want is that student ID should be unique or it should be a primary key. Now the name can be different, for example there can be multiple students with the same name, but ID should be unique and it should not contain any null values, okay. So what I'll do is I'll just make this as primary key. So if I just give here primary key, okay, and now what I'll do is I'll just give enter. So this particular table is created. Now I'll try to insert record into this particular table. So I'll just give insert into student, and for a store ID, for a student ID, let me just give 1, and name I'll just give for example Tom, and phone number I'll just give for example let's say some random number, okay, and let's say for email I'll just give test1@gmail.com, and if I just give enter, and before that I'll just give insert into student, it will be values, okay, and just give enter. Now if I just give select star from student, you see I have this particular record, right? Now this time if I want to insert a record with the same student ID, that is for let's say the name I'll just keep as for example Ricky, and phone number I can keep same or I can change it, for example I can just have for example 888 and something like that, and I can just have here for example test2. Now in this case you see here I'm trying to insert a record with the same student ID, but if you notice while creating table we have defined student ID as integer. That means student ID as integer along with primary key. That means it will not contain duplicate values, okay. If I just give enter, now you see it says that runtime error, that is unique constraint field, and you notice it has given this particular error, right? Because there cannot be two records with the same student ID, because student ID is primary key. So in this case if I just give for example, now if I just change it to let's say 2, now if I just give enter, now you see there is no issue, and if I just give select star from table, you see I have 2 records, right? So this is all about primary key. You can also have null. For example, let's say that at this moment if I just give here let's say insert into student values, and I'll just give here 3, and let's say I don't give the name. So for student ID 3 I have not provided any name, okay. So now you see here if I just give enter, you see it is fine and we did not get any error. Now if I just give select star from student, you see that I do not have any record for this particular value, that is for student ID 3 the name is not there. So what I'll do is I'll just give create table. This time let's say I'll just give student let's say not null, because I'm just showing about not null constraint. So I have just given the name of the table as student not null. You can give any name, that doesn't matter. So I'll just give here student ID, let's say I'll just give integer, then I'll just give student name, I'll just give text field, and I'll just keep these 2 field only, okay. Just give enter, and this table is created. I'll just give insert. Okay, I missed to create table with not null constraint, okay. So let me just go back here, sorry for that, because I am talking about not null. In fact this table is also valid, but I am explaining about not null constraint, right? So I'll just give here store ID int, and I'll just give as for example this one as primary key, okay, and store name I'll just give as text not null. That means it will not contain null values, and I'll just give not null 1 because not null table is already created. Now just give enter, and you notice if I just give insert into table name, that is student not null 1 values. If I just give, for example, let's say 1 comma, let's say Sam. Now if I just give enter, it is fine. Again, I'll just add another record. This time I'll just give 2, and what I'll do is here I have not passed any values. Now you see, if I just give enter, it is working fine, because you see here, if I just give, let's say, select star from this particular table, okay, select star from student not null 1, okay. Now you see here I have 1 and Sam, then 2, and then we do not have any record. Now please do not get confused between no value and null values, okay. So what I mean is, you see here, if I just give, for example, let's say if I just give insert into student not null 1, and here I'll just give SID comma sname values. Now you see here I have just given 3, and this time what I'll do is I'll just give something like this. For example, I'll not pass anything for sname. Now previously I did pass an empty value. You notice the difference here. I passed an empty value. Here I'm not passing any value at all. That means this particular field this time, that means student name, will have null values, but we have defined that our table will not have null values for name column. Now if I just give enter, now you see here, if I just come here, if I just give enter, it says that not null constraint field, because we have just given that for this particular table we have this column for which the value is 3. We have not defined any value for student name. So just to fix this, if I just give something like this, you see SID as 3 comma sname, and here I'll just give, for example, let's say Michael, okay, just give enter. Now this time it is fine. You see here it has 3 and Michael. So do not get confused with empty record and null values, okay, that is very important. Now let's talk about unique constraint. Now before that, please note that primary key is similar to unique constraint, but there is a difference. The primary key can have one column or a group of column considered as a primary key, and there will be only one primary key in a table. But in case of unique constraint, it will force a particular field or the field on which unique constraint is defined to contain unique values, okay. So for example, let's say I'll just give create table T1. I'll just give TID as, let's say, integer and unique. You can also give not null if you want. It is up to you. You can have combination of all these, and I can just have, for example, tname as text field and just give enter, and I can just insert record. So I'll just give insert into T1. I can just give 1, and I'll just give, for example, let's say hello. Just give semicolon enter, and oh sorry, actually it should be T1 and then values, sorry. So it will be values. Just give enter, and I'll just give select star from T1. You see I have 1 hello, and if I just insert another record, so I'll just give insert into T1, and if I just give, for example, let's say 2, and if I just give, let's say hi, and you see this is fine. But if I just want to give, for example, insert into T1 values 2 again, and if I just give, for example, let's say here welcome, now you see that it says that unique constraint failed, because for T1 we have defined that it will contain only unique values. You see here we have given create table T1 as integer, unique and not null. So it is must that this particular field should contain unique values. Similarly, you have another constraint, for example, default constraint. So if I just give, for example, let's say another table, that is create table T2, and I'll just give TID integer, unique not null, and tname, let's say I'll just give text, and I'll just say, for example, default as, for example, let's say NA, or I can just give, for example, unknown. Okay, and if I just give enter, this particular table is created. I'll just give insert into T2 values 2, and you see if I don't pass any value, you see if I just give, let's say, T2, and if I just give, let's say, TID, okay, comma, or if I just give TID values and then 2. So what I'm trying to say is that in this particular table, that is T2 table, I have a particular TID as 2. Now by default it will take the T name as unknown, because what we have defined here while creating the table, that T name will be text field, and by default it will take the value as unknown. Okay, so if I just give enter, you see here, if I just give enter, and if I just give, let's say, okay, let me just give select star from T2. Now you see that it says 2 and then unknown. So this is called as default. Similarly, you can have check constraint. For example, what I'll do is I'll just create another table that is T3, and I'll just have TID, and this time I'll just give, for example, T amount. Okay, and I'll just give T amount as, for example, let's say integer or float, and I'll just give check. You can also have real, for example. Okay, it is better for amount field you have real. Okay, so I'll just give real check, and I'll just give T amount is greater than, let's say, 800 or 900, let's say. Okay, and here again I have to give a parenthesis to end. Now this particular table is created. Now if I just want to insert record, I'll just give insert into T3 values. I'll just give, for example, 1, and you see if I just give, let's say, 950, okay, just give semicolon. Now if I just give select star from T3, you see that I have this particular record. Now if I just try to insert a value which is lesser than 900, for example, you see here I have given a check. So we have given a check that the T amount should always be greater than 900, but if I just give, for example, let's say 90, you see it will fail. Now it says that error, check constraint failed, because we have a check that T amount should be greater than 900. Okay, so again, if I just give even 900, you see that 900 greater than 900 is again a failure. So again, it is an error. Every time we have to insert a record greater than 900. So if I just give 901, I think it should work. It says that, okay, we have given 1,901. Okay, so if you just see that we have unique constraint also, right? So that is the reason we cannot have 1,950. So we have to give something different from 1, because 1 ID is already existing. Now you see here it will be fine, right? And you see we have 2 records, right? So this is all about all the constraint. You can even alter the structure of the table. So for example, I can just give alter table, and if you want to change the structure of the table, in this case, let's say if I want to change T3, so you have to give alter table table name, and let's say I want to add another field here. So I'll just give add, and let's say that I want to add a field, for example, let's say T name. Okay, and I want to add this as a text field. Now if I just give enter, now you see it is working fine. And if I just give select star from T3, now you see that we have 2 fields earlier. Now we have 3 fields, that is TID, T amount and T name. And even I can insert record. So I'll just say insert into T3. I'll just say, for example, 3, let's say 890.0, and actually 890 will not work because it should be greater than 900. And for text field, I'll just give, for example, let's say some dummy text, and after semicolon it says that it is an error. Insert into, oh, sorry for that. Again, I have to give values. Okay, now you see if I just give select star from T3, you see that we have a particular value for this particular field, right? So this is all about alter. In fact, you can rename also. So I can just give rename command. So let's say that I want to rename this particular field, that is T name, to some other name. For example, let's say tname1. So for that I can just give alter table name, that is t3, and I'll just give rename tname to tname1. Just give semicolon and give enter. And now if I just give, let's say if I just give select star from t3, now you see we have tid, tamount and tname1, right? In the same way you can even alter, or in fact you can rename the table name itself. So I can just give something like this, that is alter table name, rename to the new name, for example t3 new. Okay, you can give any name. And now if I just give select star from t3, now you see that it will give an error because t3 does not exist. In fact, we have the new name as t3 new, and you see these are the records. Now if you want to drop a particular table, that means if you want to drop a table permanently, you can drop it. So at this moment, if I just give dot tables, you see I have these many tables, that is store, we have student not null, we have t1, t2, invoice, and so on. Okay, so let's say that I want to drop this t1 table. So first I'll just give select star from t1, and you see we have 2 records for t1. Now if I want to drop it, what I can do is I can just give drop table and name of the table, that is t1. Just give enter, and now if I just give select star from t1, you see that it says no such table, because drop will permanently drop the table. That means it will delete the table permanently. Okay, and if you want to delete particular record from table, what you can do is you can just use delete command. Okay, so for example, let's say I have for example t3 new. Okay, so we have 3 records. Let's say that I want to delete this record. Okay, so what I can do is I can just give delete from table name, that is t3 new, where we have tid is equal to, and if I just give enter, now if I just give select star from t3 new, now you see that second record is gone. That means the record with tid s2 is gone, right? So be very careful with delete. If you don't give where clause, it will delete all the records. For example, let's say that I have t2, right? So if I just give select star from t2, you see we have 2 records. In fact, actually we have only 1 record. If I just give delete, or first let me just insert few records. So insert into t2 values, let's say I'll just give 3 comma, for example, let's say I have just given some dummy text. Again I'll insert, and I'll just say, for example, let's say 4. Okay, again I'll just say, for example, let's say 9. Okay, and here I'll just give, for example, this particular text. Now if I just give select star from t2, I have 4 records, right? 1, 2, 3 and 4. Now if I just give delete star from t2 or delete from t2, okay, if I just give delete from t2 without any where clause, now you see if I just give enter, now if I just give select star from t2, all the records are gone. So the difference between drop and delete is that the table will still exist in case of delete, but the records will be deleted. But in case of drop, it will permanently delete the table. So be very careful while executing delete and drop command. You can also take the backup of particular database. For example, I have this particular table, right? I mean, if you just come here, we have mydb, right? That is mydb.db. If you want to take the backup of this particular database, you can just give the command, that is dot backup, and you can give the name of the backup. For example, I can just give mydb underscore bkp.db. You can give any name. Now you see I have a backup ready. Okay, now you see here I have this particular db also. So this is a backup database. Now let's say that again, if I just come here and again if I just give dot tables, now you see that we have so many tables, right? Now let's say that I want to delete this table, that is t2. If I just give drop t2, just give semicolon and enter. Oh sorry, actually it will be drop table t2. Okay, just give enter, and this particular table is gone, right? So if I just give dot schema, or you can just give dot schema t2, now you see that actually t2 does not exist. I'll just show you. If I just give select star from t2, you see it says no such table. Okay, and even when you gave schema t2, it did not give anything. That means this particular table does not exist, and hence there is no schema for this table. Now we have already taken a backup here. If you remember, we have taken a backup here, right? That is mydb underscore backup. If you want to restore from this particular backup, what you have to do is you have to just give dot restore, and you have to name the particular backup. So mydb underscore backup. So dot db. So what it is going to do is it will restore all the tables from this particular backup, that is mydb underscore bkp. And now you see, if I just give this time dot tables, now you see that we have t2 still present because we have restored the data from this particular database to my current database, which is mydb.db. Now you see that there are various modes. So at this moment, you see, if I just give, for example, select star from invoice, you see by default there is a pipe symbol here, and by default the mode is list. And let's say that you want to change the mode. So for that, you see, if I just show you, if you just see here, we have SQLite.org/CLI.html. Here we have different CLI commands. Okay, so you can just go through these CLI commands to understand various modes in detail. Okay, and I'll just show you a few of them. So if you just come back here, and if I just give, for example, dot mode as, let's say, CSV, just give enter. Now if I just give select star from invoice, now you see that this particular result is in the CSV format, that is the separator is comma. Similarly, if I just give, let's say, otherwise I'll just give, let's say, dot mode and insert. So this is an insert mode. And again, if I just give select star from invoice, now you see that we have inserted table command. Okay, that is insert into table, right? So these are the values for this particular table, right? And this is showing with insert command because we have given that dot mode as insert. Similarly, I can just have dot mode as tab. If I just give tab, now if I just give select star from invoice, now you see that the data is in tab format. Okay, so there is a tab between each field, right? Similarly, if you want in column format, you can just give dot mode space column. Okay, just give enter, and now you see that it is a column, right? At this moment, I'll just set the mode as list by default. Okay, and now this is what we were having previously, right? Now one last thing which I wanted to show you is that I would request all of you to save the database explicitly. That means you can just give save, that is dot save, and name of your database, that is mydb.db. It is always better. At this moment it is showing that your database is logged because we are performing some operations in this particular database. So if I just give dot q or dot quit, now I have quit from this particular database, right? Now if I just give SQLite 3, and now if I just give dot save and mydb.db, that means I'm just trying to save my database, right? Now you see here this particular database is saved, right? Now if I just come back here, I think we have covered most of the things, right? Now I just wanted to show you one last thing, is that you see here, if you just go to this particular website, that is dbeaver.io, you see this is a dbeaver website wherein it is containing a database tool. So if you don't want to work with this particular command prompt, you can just go to this particular tool, you can just download it and you can just try it. Okay, so you can just see what all things are there in this particular tool. It is up to you. Or you can use another tool. For example, we have this SQLiteBrowser.org. This is also a very famous tool. Okay, so you can use this particular tool as well. Okay, it is up to you. Or if you don't want to use these two tools or even command prompt, you can use simple text editor or code editor. For example, I have created a video on how to run SQLite in Visual Studio Code. You can just have a look into this particular video. I'll just give this particular link to you so that you can just run SQLite in Visual Studio Code, which is a very famous code editor. Alright, so with this, I'll just close this video. So that's it. This was just a basic tutorial on SQLite, and there are a lot of commands that can be explained in SQLite. So in fact, I'm trying to create a complete course on SQLite. So stay tuned, and once that course will be published, I will convey to you. Till then, take care and bye.